And welcome to Exceptional Women. This is Magic's Candy O'Terry. The list of singers and songwriters Gay and I have had on our show is long and illustrious. Mariah Carey, Gloria Estefan, Linda Ronstadt, Bette Midler, Paula Cole, Sophie B. Hawkins, Donna Lewis, Vanessa Williams, K.D. Lang, Jackie DeShannon, Natalie Cole, Bonnie Raitt, and now we're honored to add Stevie Nicks to that list of women who have opened their hearts and shared their stories on Exceptional Women. Stevie had just celebrated her birthday when I spoke to her from her cliffside home outside of Los Angeles. At 53, she is at peace with her life and her accomplishments. Stevie Nicks is a real survivor with a heart of gold. It's clear that even in the hard times, including a reputation for partying maybe a little too much in the 70s and an 8-year drug addiction to a painkiller, none of that crushed her spirit. She is very close to her family, and she cherishes her friendships above everything else in this world. She's in love with songwriting, and her passion for the craft is reflected in the longevity of her songs. Believe it or not, Stevie has never won a Grammy for her solo work, although Fleetwood Mac won Album of the Year for Rumors in February 1978. I started out our interview by asking Stevie to tell me about the first time she ever sang in front of someone.
I don't remember exactly who it was that I sang in front of, but I was singing really young. I remember when I was in the first grade coming home, and my dad owned a little bar, an actual bar in Los Angeles.
Really?
Where my mother made enchiladas and Mexican food, and it was like a great place. I used to stop in there on the way home from school. My granddad and my dad would be there, and my granddad was really a country western singer. He never made it, but it was his goal to make it. It was like he was always singing. I can remember being in the bar at 2 in the afternoon when really nobody else was in there except my dad and my uncles and my granddad singing. So it was just for them. But I remember singing with my granddad, and definitely even at that really young age, feeling like music was definitely going to be a part of my life.
When you were growing up in California, what was your family life like? You just described your granddad, so he must have been an important part of your life.
Right, and he was totally a character.
Was he really?
Yes.
What do you remember most about your grandfather?
Well, my granddad wanted to be a country western singer, and he really wanted this. He kind of supported himself playing pool. So this is really a character, this man. Well, he was a pool shark, and yes, he was, and it's like my whole family plays pool except for me. It's wild. Everybody in my family is a really good pool player, but me. I never wanted to learn to play pool.
Do you have a big family? Brothers? Sisters?
I have one brother who's 5.5 years younger than me. He does my T-shirts and my merchandise. He and my singer, Lori, who's been singing with me since 1978, they ended up getting married 10 years after they met, and they have a little girl named Jessie who is 10, and so they live in Phoenix, and when I'm home, I live with them. When I'm working, I'm in Los Angeles, and I have a rented house here. My brother was just younger enough that it's like he was too young to do anything that I did, and just close enough so that we kind of fought a lot.
Your life hasn't always been glamorous, though, Stevie. I read that you were once a hostess at a hamburger joint called Bob's Big Boy. Is that true?
I did, and I was a hostess. I didn't get to be a waitress there because I really wasn't good enough to be a waitress.
All right, so give it up. What would you do when people were rude to you, Stevie?
I always found that being really, really nice always fixed that. And I worked at several restaurants, and I was a cocktail waitress at several restaurants, and I was a food waitress at a couple. And I always made great money and great tips because I just was really, really nice to people. And it worked. And I needed to make money, so I didn't mind that.
You're waking up to Magic 106.7's award-winning program, Exceptional Women. Hi, it's Candy O'Terry. In the spotlight, superstar Stevie Nicks. When she was growing up, was she as political a person as she is today?
No. In fact, I was really very unpolitical. One of the reasons being, I always felt that I didn't really want to become a political person because I didn't want to write about politics. I figured that my mission here was to write songs for people that were lonely or sad or having problems or in a bad relationship or every once in a while in a good relationship. I wanted to write for those people. I didn't really want to throw myself into the political arena. And I didn't. I'm not very political. Until the last couple of years, when everything was going on, I did find myself watching more politics on TV and becoming a little bit more involved. But up until a couple of years ago, I really wasn't involved at all.
Stevie, you were just talking about your songwriting. And from the people that I've had the chance to interview over all these years, many of them singers and songwriters like you, I've been told that songwriting is a very deep and a personal process. A couple of women have told me It's like giving birth to a child.
For me, the songwriting process is really a lot of fun. It's really why I do this, because I enjoy that one part of it so much. I've never had a child, so I don't know that I would compare it to having a child. The song becomes a child when it's done,
yes.
But I don't think it's that difficult to do, because when I write my songs, I just have a great time. It's like there is nothing more fun for me than like setting up my living room one night and saying to everybody, I'm going to write tonight. I just feel the power, you know, I'm going to write tonight. So everybody go away and leave me alone and let me just have my house to myself tonight. And I go around and I fix everything up and I light incense and candles. And I know that sounds like totally stupid and like Stevie Nicks you would think she would do, but in fact I do that, and I do set up my atmosphere. And then, you know, if I have a great poem that I wrote a couple months before that I really believe in, to go in and sit down at the piano and I have my typewriter on another desk, is for me the ultimate fun experience.
I'm trying to picture it, and you know, you just said, I bet people think, oh, that's what Stevie Nicks does, and you know what? I think I did too.
It is. And it is what I do.
And do you wear a long flowing dress at the same time?
Well, you know what? I mean, I don't wear long flowing dresses around the house, but I'll tell you something. When I'm really into doing something like that, I really will set up the atmosphere. And maybe I do go in and put on a little makeup. Maybe I will go down and have my hair blown out straight, and so that I'm going to really feel good about writing. And I know it sounds crazy to people, but in fact it works. If you're going to do something like that, any creative thing. I also draw, I paint. Same thing. When I'm going to do that, I really make sure that my atmosphere is right, so that when I do sit down to create, all the channels are open.
The phenomenon of Fleetwood Mac. Let's just take a few minutes to talk about that time in your life. I have a story for you too, a true one. I went to your concert, the Bicentennial Concert of the Year, here in the Boston area at a place called Schaefer Stadium in 1976. And I loved that concert so much. It was such a moment in time for me that I always kept my ticket in my wallet. And certainly I've had a lot of wallets over the years, but it's still there, and it's unbroken because the crowd, which was a sellout crowd in July, a hot night, was kept at the gates for too long. This was a concert with Boz Scaggs, the Eagles, and Fleetwood Mac. They kept us at the gates for too long, and everyone just burst through the gates, and so they let everybody in, and you didn't need your ticket. Do you remember that concert?
Wow, right. I remember that show.
It was a time where it seemed that you couldn't turn on the radio without hearing Fleetwood Mac. As they say, the hits just kept on coming. Songs that you wrote, Stevie, and sang lead on. Landslide, Rhiannon, Sarah, Gypsy. The list could just go on and on. If you could you just step back in time and paint a picture of what that was like at the height of Fleetwood Mac?
It was stunning. It really was stunning. I mean, I have to say that I really wish sometimes that I could just take all of you one night, you know, and put you in my pocket and go up there on the stage to experience what that was like. Every once in a while now, something comes close, but never quite the same. There was something about just that time, not just for Fleetwood Mac, but for all of those really big bands in the 70s. There was a magic that really isn't there now. It's just not quite as magical as it was, and I don't know why that is. Maybe it was because that was the onset of the big, huge bands, the Led Zeppelins and the Who and the Beatles, and I mean even the Beatles coming over a little bit into the 70s. The really, really huge bands and the huge festivals. I mean, there is nothing like one of those huge festivals. I remember one of the first things that really stunned me was A Day on the Green in San Francisco, which is 75,000 people in that huge sports arena, outdoors, 75,000 people. And we did it 2 years in a row. The first year was opening for Peter Frampton. So it was Frampton, Fleetwood Mac, and Gary Wright. And the next year, we headlined it. So it was Fleetwood Mac and then two opening groups. Those two shows, I think, were really the quintessential, incredible rock and roll show. Outside in San Francisco, the weather's beautiful, a little bit windy, and just magical. Just so magical.
And the other side of the coin, the hard part. What was the price of fame for you?
Well, the price of fame, you know, a lot of people have asked me this lately, what I would change, if I go back over the last 25 years, what would I really change? And the only thing that I would change would be the 8 years that I took the Klonopin. I wouldn't even change the cocaine. And as bad as that was, and as much as it hurt me, there was a part of all that that really did kind of make me become who I was. And I got off of it soon enough where it didn't kill me. The Klonopin, that was like something that I don't feel I needed to go through. That was not something that made me write better. That was not something that carried me to another place. It just almost killed me and took away my creativity and my soul and my want to write. And those nights I'm telling you about when I go in and fix everything up and sit down at my piano, those nights never happened during those 8 years of Klonopin. Drawing my art, my beautiful paintings that someday everybody will see. my little fairies and angels, and I worked so hard on this stuff. I didn't do any of that during those 8 years. So I completely stopped. I stopped becoming a creative person. And if I hadn't have stopped taking that drug, I would have been dead right now. There's no way I would have been sitting here talking to you on the phone. So it's like, that's the bad part. That 8 years was the really bad part. And I just feel very lucky to have survived it at all.
For those of you who are just tuning in, good morning. You're listening to our exclusive interview with superstar Stevie Nicks. This is Magic 106.7's Exceptional Women, and I'm your host. It's Candy O'Terry. Now, as the interview continued, I asked Stevie a question Gay and I always like to ask of everyone who joins us. So when things are tough and obstacles are there, how do you get around them? How do you get past the tough times?
Well, one day I woke up and I walked in the bathroom and I looked at myself and I said to myself, I think that it's the Klonopin that's killing you, Stevie. I don't think it's anything else. I think it's this prescribed drug that you take every morning when you get up. And I went back to bed, got up the next morning, called the hospital, went straight to the hospital, and was there for 47 days. And it was a very, very nasty, unpleasant, long 47 days. I nearly died coming off that stuff. And you know, I do stop to smell the roses now. I sit here in my house that's overhanging over the ocean, and I go, you are a lucky girl, Stevie Nicks. Don't ever think you aren't. You're lucky to be here. You're lucky to be alive. You're lucky to be living in this wonderful house. You're lucky you didn't lose your entire fortune and, you know, scare all of your friends away. You're lucky that you are where you are now and that you are happy. When you have a really bad experience like that, when you come out of it, life is really different, and you really do appreciate everything a whole lot more. This Trouble in Shangri-La record, I appreciate this so much because the Street Angel record 7 years ago was the last 4 years of the Klonopin, and it was really a bad record. I did not twirl. I did not dance. The songs were dull. It was everything I never wanted to be. And so now to talk to you about this record is so exciting for me because it was a nightmare to try to promote a record that I knew in my heart was not a good record.
Stevie, it seems to be a universal girl thing that our friendships with other women mean the world to us. And I read that you had a best friend growing up, and her name was Robin, and she died in her 30s from leukemia. And I know that must have been hard for you. So I bet, though, that there are parts of Robin that you keep with you all the time. Tell me about her.
Robin and I became best friends when we were like 14 years old. So I did have, 14 to 33, I think, when she got sick with her. I guess the best thing about my friendship with Robin was is that she was there before Fleetwood Mac. It's always really nice to have somebody in your life that is there before you get famous, because those are the people that really do treat you the same way that they did before you got famous. So the people that were there before that end up being really important all through your life. Your mom, your dad, your brothers, your friends that you made before the big fame came, because everything changes after that. I think she has been there a lot during this last 2 years with this record, because every once in a while I'll really feel her presence. Like, she'll go, that's a really good song, or she'll go, that's perfect, that vocal was perfect. She was a speech therapist, so it's like sometimes I feel her like the teacher up there shaking her finger at me saying, you need to sleep more, you need to get a few more hours of sleep every night.